Hello and greetings everyone, Darth Koldis here. Now, I want to do a important channel update and announce something that I've planned for a while. It's my 40th birthday. Yes, I'm turning 40. Some people don't believe that. Some are even more astonished when I tell them that I have a daughter that's 21. But with that said, uh, midlife crisis kinda hits everyone differently. Now, in my case, it's that I kinda started to do YouTube once again, which I did in the past. I'm actually one of the earliest YouTube creators because I started, I think, in the first year that YouTube was a thing, way back when, basically. So, yeah, I've done different kinds of content like spiritual content, historical content, role-playing content, Star Wars content, obviously. I have done it in written form, on camera, all kinds of things. I even tried the VTube stuff, though I just can't find a program that does avatars with armor or chainmail or something on. I Maybe I'm just not finding the right one, so I'm going to do in character stuff more. I mean in front of camera stuff more. That said, for the channel updates themselves, there will be some things continuing like usual, some things will change a little bit. Now, I want to do more content generally speaking. I will still continue to do reactions, but not just to music videos, but also to other Star Wars content. I wanted to do more videos on basically your life changes and tips and basically self-improvement, because that's something that I actually do for a living. I wanted to expand on the entire Star Wars thing, generally speaking, doing more in-character videos, which is the main reason that I'm uploading this video right now. I want to do a little bit more of basically everything, if you like. Now, I will focus on Star Wars, and I have known Star Wars all my life, but I'm really getting into it once again now with the Old Republic online MMO that I'm playing with my wife, and she is a big Star Wars nerd too. I really like how things are developing right now. I'm happy with my job, I'm helping people, I'm having 3 children with a wonderful wife. Basically, my life is great. I lost some weight, as you can see if you look at my older videos. I'm using the Sith code to improve myself, maybe help you too. I'm definitely rather happy with everything. The only thing that I want to change is the name of this channel and my in-character videos, because I'm not happy with the costume. I ordered a new costume, didn't work out the way I hoped it would, so I'm going back to the old stuff with a little bit of change to make it look more Sithy, I hope. I'll do a new character, a new channel name. Main reason being that I wasn't happy with the old one, obviously. And I thought the 40th birthday is a great way to redefine yourself, because, about statistically half your life is past, and you really have to figure out what you want to do now with the rest of your life. Also, 40 is usually the magical mark where you really stop being anything but an adult. Like, some people a little earlier than that, some a little bit later than that, but around 40 is usually a spot where you have settled in life for real. Like, you know your place in life, you know what you do, you know what you are and what you are not. Some people extend their life finding phase a little bit beyond that, but around 40 is usually the point where you settle in and don't change all that much anymore. Obviously, if you get super old, there is some ways where you just decline, and that's that, but usually around 40 is the point where you really have settled in life, and there won't be any major changes coming, except there is a crisis like a war or something like that. But usually that's around the point where you settle. So I have been through major changes in my life, always went along with changes to my nicknames. I had a phase where I was a super honorable paladin-like person, always telling the truth, like stuff like that, where I really was inspired by paladin stuff, where I changed I was actually given the name by friends, Arfen Maithor, which is the Elven language from Tolkien, honorable warrior. Basically, I have found the name Orkar Isper myself later on, which was when I was more in my martial arts berserker phase. I also gained a lot of weight just to have an upper hand in combat, in martial arts. I have had other changes like Cry of Frost when I was more in my edgy phase and stuff like that. And now I kind of want to settle for Darth Koldis. Now, why not Darth Boreas, the name that you know? Because I wasn't happy with the name to begin with. It was just the best one that wasn't taken yet. Because when you take Sith names, there's a certain convention. There's a whole not PhD thesis, but a work for university on it, linguistically speaking, how Sith names are created and how they appear in canon and what they do. And it's not absolutely strictly regulated. There's a few canon names that don't fit into the usual way how to do this at all. But generally speaking, there is a convention how to create Sith names and what you can and cannot do. And there's some typical things that you do, like you can take a Greek mythology god and make that a Darth, like Darth, what's called Phobos is a great example for that. And that is how Darth Boreas came to be, because it's the ancient Greek god of the north winds, cold, icy winds and stuff like that. But I'm not happy with that, because first of all, it's a god of wind and direction and winter, of course, but not exactly focused on the cold only. It's also ancient Greek, which I don't have that much personal connection with. And the other problem with the name is that I didn't really like it. It was just the only option that I came up with that wasn't already taken. I've had a whole list with 10 different names, and all of them were already taken. Happens if you enter a franchise that's more than 50 years old. So yeah, I'm not very happy with what I have got. So I recently just created a new Path of Exile character, of which I have I think 20, and I looked at my old characters and I read something and was, dude, this would be perfect as a Sith name. Why did I forget that? Quickly googled it. Yeah, not taken at all. Google it doesn't even know that exists. Perfect. So I kind of want to rebrand myself here, because, well, first of all, I want to improve the quality of my videos a little as well, and do at least a little bit of, well, maybe not editing, because that's really much work, but maybe do a little bit of scripting before, so that I have at least some points, so I don't forget something and have to do like 20 addendum videos later on when I realize I've got something important. I also want to explore the character of Darth Koldis and who that actually is, and you know what, I may as well just do that now. So I think the channel updates are done, and now go into the character a little bit. Now, the way that you choose Sith names is usually done by various methods. You can do a method where you just use an English word and leave it as it is as your name. Darth Bane, great example, common English word, bam. In Galaxy it's basic, so basic, the language basic, so Bane, bam, there you go. A more complex way of doing it is reduction, where you take an English word and isolate a part of it. Good example would be Darth Treya, from betrayal. So betrayal is the root word. You cut off the end, you cut off the beginning, and end up with Treya, so Darth Treya. That's how you do this. Some just drop simple pre or suffixes, like Insidious becomes Darth Sidious, Invader becomes Darth Vader, and so on and so forth. There is also a way where you just change the writing without changing the pronunciation. A great example is Darth Undeadu. You hear from the pronunciation undead. Yeah, he is a zombie, so undead, basically. Now, how do they write it? With an A, so A-N-D-E-D-D-U, undeadu, so that when you read it, you don't automatically go, oh, undead, yeah. So it's a little bit hidden, but if you pronounce it, yeah, it's undead. So yeah, that's another way to do it. A few names have mixed versions of that. Some literally just take a word from Latin, or no, I think it's only Latin, and add a common Latin or other ending to that, and that's the name. Doku, as example, comes Darth Tyrannus, from tyrant. Well, tyrant would be an English word, but the origin is Latin, and then you just do an US at the end. So Tyrannus, done. That's a way to do it. Rather rare way of doing it is to just make up a name. Now that happens sadly in Canon 2, which justifies that you just take anything you want, but it should at least sound somewhat menacing. With that said, Koldis is basically a mishmash of multiple. The first one is a common English word that you all know, cold. Ice team character, perfect. And change the way of writing it so that it's not that obvious, which is with a K instead of a C. Pronunciation stays the same. The is part has two important things, one of which is it's a rather common ending for Sith Lords, as example Plagueis, you have that there, and it's is. And is in Germanic languages is the root or base for ice. Now in English, ice is, you can see the how is evolved into ice. In German, you still say ice, you just write differently with EIS. In the Nordic languages, you still often have just is, like in Icelandic you have that. By the way, Iceland is the land of ice. So yeah, that just to that. So I think cold ice would have been a little bit on the nose. So Koldis, I think, is perfect. If you disagree, I don't care. I like the name. With that said, that's how I got to the name Koldis. Cold ice, basically. Koldis. I like it, and it is conformant with Sith pronunciation, and it's not taken yet, so I'm gonna use that in the future. Now, with that out of the way, I wanted to explain a little bit about the character, because it will be a part of the in-character videos, of which I want to do more of, which will include guided meditations, which will include advice for life, which will go into philosophical analysis of the Sith code and beliefs, probably spirituality about the ancient Sith gods, if I can find better material on them. I want to do lightsaber combat videos in character if I can do it in armor, because it's a little bit more hindering. I will try to make my costume a little bit better. I want to do in-character explanations of other Star Wars characters, of the timeline, the history, basically everything Star Wars in character. Why in character? Well, first of all, it's kind of fun to dress up and do stuff like that. Some people like that. There is channels for Star Wars lore done in this style, with VTubing, with just text or a screen, with screenshots from various Star Wars materials and so on, with in-game, like from video game footage and stuff like that. I haven't yet found a channel that does in-character videos, like with dressing up and stuff like that. So maybe that's a unique thing, I don't know. Given how long Star Wars existed, how many fans it has, I'm probably not the only one doing it, but it's at least a standout thing where I can't immediately point to another channel that's doing that. Also, it's something that I've done on my World of Darkness videos, which was relatively successful, so sure, might work. So with that said, who is Darth Koldis? Now, with this character, oh yeah, another thing about in-character videos that is really great. In-character videos have the added benefit of me not having to cite my sources or prove anything that I say. In Star Wars, one of the biggest problems the fandom has is that there is rarely a finite statement on anything, a definite statement on anything. Canon leaves a lot of things open where there is no answer, and when it gives a definite answer, it usually collides with other things that the canon said. George Lucas even contradicts himself and contradicts what George Lucas said. So there is a lot of conflict. I have done a video about that, but basically speaking, even if you try to be scientific about it and cite your sources, in Star Wars there's so many sources that conflict with each other that you still can choose whatever. And in character kind of frees me up to not having to discuss why I disagree with George or anything like that, because it's in character. My character can believe whatever he likes. It's all his point of view. It's probably very biased. In-universe sources are not definite canon, and it's not super reliable, though I actually try to give you the best information that I myself have, the best information that's out there, so I try to be as correct as I can. If I ain't, or if I end up contradicting something from canon, which probably canon contradicts itself, that's the best explanation for me to not get into trouble with the fandom, basically. So Darth Koldis is also set in 300 ABY. Why? Because the official Star Wars canon ends in, I think, 190 ABY, with the last comic that is in Galaxy that was ever made. So 190 ABY, 200 ABY is the official end of Star Wars lore, not the Star Wars universe. That goes on. The Star Wars galaxy continues. There is so much that still can happen in Star Wars, and that the ride is left open for someone to pick up in the future. Well, I'm gonna be that someone and continue from there. Why 300 ABY? Well, it's still 100 years between the official last story and my story, so there is still room for the galaxy to change and things to happen, so that I can build on that. Also, more importantly, in 300 ABY, everything in Star Wars has already happened. So I can refer to Darth Koldis, to Darth Great, to Vader, to Palpatine, and so on and so forth, without coming into the problems that how does your character know that, because it's official history by this point, and technology might have improved, who knows. Also, my character is quite special because he was actually born a lot sooner than that. Sorry. My character is relatively old, and that gives him the chance to speak from in character his own knowledge on a lot of different topics. He was born in 3686 BBY, so before the Battle of Yavin, which means that he is by this point about 4,000 years old. Now you might think, how does that work? Well, actually there's Sith in canon that are even older than that, and I do have an explanation ready, which I will get to soon. Now, the main reason why I'm setting him in this age is because he's still old enough to have witnessed most of the important things that happened in the Star Wars universe. He is old enough to know many historical figures, theoretically in person. He is old enough to have access to knowledge that was lost over time. He knows a lot of things. Now, the other reason is that it is set 40 years before the online MMO of Star Wars, Star Wars Old Republic MMO, so that he could have been a part of, I think, the most interesting time in the entire Star Wars history and galaxy. So that is something that I'm really into and want to explore. And he is 40 years old by the time that these events take place, which I think just fits my own birthday. Now, with that said, he's also a Chiss, and Chiss are kinda unique racially. Now, one thing about the Chiss that you have to know, or I have to explain probably, is that most Chiss do not have force sensitivity. Reason for that is, however, not their genes, because they are genetically still humans. Historically, Chiss are humans that have evolved separately on Xilla for 50,000 years. So they are, technically speaking, still somewhat human, but they took a different branch, which is why they have the red eyes that gives them infrared vision, why they have blue skin, which is because of the minerals that they live off from glacial ice, and they have adapted to living in the cold. So they are still somewhat human, but different kind of human. And technically speaking, they have the same force sensitivity as humans do, which is, I think, one of the most force sensitive species in the galaxy. Reason Chiss don't have that usually is because of where they live, because Xilla lies in the unknown regions, which are unknown for a very good reason. Because the Celestials that made the area, or made the galaxy, used the unknown regions to imprison things that were thought of too dangerous to roam around the galaxy, like Mgal, like the force waves that are in the region, and some other horrible things that only exist in their own unknown regions, and made it as difficult for those things as possible to keep them imprisoned. They created a lot of force space anomalies, black holes and stuff like that, to make escape very difficult, make the establishment of hyperdrive lanes, hyperlanes, extremely difficult, navigation extremely difficult, and most importantly, they created force suppressing fields so that these force sensitive creatures that they try to imprison don't use the force to get out. And that is why most Chiss are not force sensitive, because they live in a force suppressant field, and Chiss that travel outside of the unknown regions tend to have force powers awakened that they didn't even know that they have, and it's why Chiss born outside the Chiss space, the unknown region, tend to be way more force sensitive than others of their race, and have more commonly be born with force sensitivity. There's even Chiss Jedi in canon, so just for a reference. Now the Chiss that do gain force sensitivity in the unknown regions on Xilla are called Skywalkers, because they are used to navigate, or better said astrogate, through the force, the space anomalies, using force precognition to basically get ships safely through the difficult areas. Now, difficult to traverse areas. These are usually females, and usually they lose the powers around their 30s. So they don't have the force sensitivity forever, which is due to the force suppressing fields. Now, with that said, male Chiss that have force powers are known. One of the Chiss Jedi that I mentioned is actually a male, so there's no reason why a Chiss Sith couldn't exist, theoretically. Now, why Chiss? Because the Chiss grow up on Xilla, which is a glacial ice planet, strong in the dark side, because Xilla used to be a tropical planet and through catastrophes turned into a glacial ball of ice that made living super difficult. Actually, it's the coldest planet known in Star Wars. It's so cold that the Chiss flee deep underground into glacial ice to be warm. So yeah, and it's why the Chiss are the way they are, because the planet is absolutely brutal and unforgiving. It's why they still have emotions, they just learn to bottle them up really well and be self-controlled, disciplined. They are super into logic and rationality, as seen with, say, Thrawn's character, because this is the surroundings that the people live and grow up in, and they have to be that way to survive. And over 50,000 years that just became the culture, which is why Chiss have so much self-control and discipline. I think this fits my character perfectly, because he is rational, a rational person. He is about logic, cold logic, and he is very self-controlled and disciplined, but still has the emotions to use if he deems it necessary, not just out of rage or something like that. Here's also my height and stature, because it makes the whole acting and costume stuff much easier. A male, obviously, and I think that him being born on the planet strong in the dark side makes so much more sense. Now let's go on with his life story. He was born in the Kivu family, which is one of the official great families on the planet. It's a big family, it's not a very popular one though. As such, he was born with the name Sadok, that was his given name, and this makes his name Kivu Sadok Safis. Safis being a direct member of the family suffix, and Kivu being the prefix for the family. So his names go family, actual name, and social suffix. With that, it's Kivu Sadok Safis, and the core name usually contains a part of the family, a part of the given name, and a part of the social suffix, which is why why Fron is called Fron. Google it. As for my character, core name would be Kidofis. Now, this core name is usually only used in basic when interacting with other species, because apparently using Chiss names like that is too difficult or complicated, I don't know. But Kidofis would be the core name as he was a young person. He went to regular school, yada yada, joined the military academy, became a lieutenant, did a voluntary travel year, which many Chiss do, and in this travel year he actually discovered another dark side ice planet in the unknown regions, which awoke his potential and colored his hair white, which is very uncommon because Chiss usually have black hair, though with age they also can get gray and silver or white hair. In his case, it was dark side corruption that did that. He then served in the military, fighting the Grisk and the Killik, which are the most common enemies of the Chiss ascendancy. And through his achievements, he became a part of the Iritsi family and was offered adoption if he could pass the trials. He passed the trials and became a member of the ruling family of the Iritsi, which is also in charge of the military. Now, his name changed to Iritsi Sadok Nuru, because Nuru, being an associate with the family, Fron was also adopted into the Mithron family. Not Mithron, into the Myth family. I have to check that, sorry. And his name changed, so he is now Iritsi Sadok Nuru. So Sadok stays the same because it's his given name, Iritsi for the family and Nuru for associate. Now, core name changed to Izadur, which is, by the way, icy in Icelandic, and it's a character name that I used on many characters in roleplay over the course of time. I thought that was rather brilliant. Then he had a very, very important battle where he was ambushed on a patrol by the Grisk, and they were first of all ambushed. His team was vastly outnumbered and the Grisk were sure to win, and in this desperation he reached into the Force for the first time in his life knowingly, letting out a chilling scream, which is, by the way, an official canon force power. I will go into these later, and froze everything in his vicinity, the Grisk, his own troops and so on, and shattered them into pieces. Problem being that he now lost all of his men, and explaining that to the council would be difficult. Also, that he has force powers became more and more obvious, and as a result he was banished from Xilla. Why banished? Because, well, the Chiss view anything that is not in conformity with their society as dangerous, and usually kill people who show force sensitivity unless they're Skywalkers. So anyone with force power stronger than precognition, they usually get executed or banned. In his case, because of his achievements, he was spared the execution and just banned from the planet. And he got a ship called Independency and sent into space. Now, due to his force precognition powers, he made it out of the actual unknown regions into the known regions, and over a hyperlane that he used, he ended up crash landing on Cardelba. Cardelba, for those who don't know, is also an ice planet strong in the dark side, which used to be Nagasadow's base of operations, Naga Sadow being one of the most powerful ancient Sith Lords. On Car Delva he found the Academy and the holocrons of Naga Sadow after passing various trials, surviving traps, and fighting a lot of beasts. Sith alchemy created ice golems and stuff like that Naga Sadow created, and fought force ghosts and stuff like that. Well, Sith, the undead versions, also literal undead, because back in the day necromancy was a thing. So he really earned his place in the academy and studied the holocrons there to learn his powers, rituals, how to do his armor and stuff like that. He spent about 10 years in this state until another Sith came to the planet called Darth Arcticus, which is a fan-made character. Again, kind of highly recommend you just type into YouTube name Darth Arcticus, and you get 2 fan movies about him, completely AI made. That said, Darth Arcticus found Isildur, took him on as apprentice, and spent a few years, actually 7 years, again 7 years, on Car Delva with him, studying the holocrons and teaching Isildur how to do lightsaber combat and various force powers. Then in 3643 they returned to the official Sith Empire, and Arcticus dropped Isildur off at the Korriban Academy to train as a Sith warrior. Now, I don't want to be a major lore character in that sense. It's kind of cool, but also overdone. So instead of being the Wrath of the Emperor and stuff like that, because that's also kind of difficult to hide, he was just there with the Wrath of the Emperor and Darth Nox respectively, so he has knowledge of everything that happens in the Star Wars Online MMO game, and he was involved, but he is not the main character, and this is just there as one of other Sith. I thought it was kind of fair treatment. Now, with that said, he also made his own armor. Now, on Car Delva, he also had access to Beskar, so he made a Beskar chainmail, he made a Beskar helmet, and he enchanted it with Force Barrier, so that the chains, the interlinks, are actually Force Barrier protected, giving him the protection of dark armor, even though it's chainmail instead of plate. It's also the best that I have for costumes, so that's the explanation behind that. His lightsabers are quite special. They are, first of all, permafrost crystals. Now, permafrost crystals are rare in Star Wars, though they exist in canon, and they have been used by Jedi mostly, and at least one other Sith. Permafrost crystals are special because they don't cut with heat. They freeze things on a molecular level and then shatter it. The results are pretty much the exact same as with normal standard lightsabers, just that they're cold based instead of heat based, and there's some things that they do differently, but as said, the results are basically the same. It's more a thematic thing. It's cool, haha. Wordplay. So, and his swords are silver. Now, swords, for those that don't know, lightsaber colors are actually not bound to the order that you join, because Jedi have many different colors, as you all are aware, because they bind the crystals to themselves, and that makes the crystals take on various colors and forms. The Sith usually have red crystals, because when you bleed a crystal they usually become red. However, there is many famous exceptions to this, where say Revan used a purple blade, or Sana used a, was it also purple, magenta, something like that blade. So there's Sith that used yellow blades, there's Sith that used orange blades. So no, Sith don't have to use red crystals, though that is the most common color. The reason is the way they create these usually. Now, technically speaking, a Sith can pick up any lightsaber, use that, and tada. So technically speaking, if a Sith takes Yoda's lightsaber, he has a green lightsaber. But if you bind it to yourself, there's two things that happen. Usually it changes the color to reflect the wielder, bond with the wielder, and reflect who they are, which is why lightsaber colors usually give you an idea about the wielder, and enhancing certain aspects of the wielder, which is why certain kyber crystals are sought out more than others. If you are, say, strong in the Force as a Jedi, you want a green crystal, and if you are a strong fighter, you want a blue crystal. Now, Sith usually bleed the crystals, which is Disney Canon edition, but I think it's better than the artificially created version that it was used before. And when you bleed a crystal, you pour basically your hatred, your fury, whatever, into the crystal until it gives up, and you dominate it and it turns red. Now, usually it is because some things like hatred, rage, and what is poured into these crystals are associated with the color red in psychology. So I don't think that is a good thing for Arcticus. I think Arcticus is more calm, more self-controlled, and more not so much about hatred and rage, and more about vengeance, let's say. And vengeance may not be even the best word for it. He also likes power and exploring the Force and so on and so forth, and so I thought the best color for him would actually be silver. Why? Because in canon, silver, not white, don't mix it up, two different things. White represents purity, innocence, and in terms of Ahsoka, neutrality. Silver is a different thing. Now, in Disney canon, I don't think they even have silver swords yet, too similar to white probably. But in Legends, we have Corran Horn, a famous Jedi wielding a silver blade, and there's others that wield silver blades as well. Now, silver in the expanded universe stands for a few things, one of which being self-determination, logic, being control, having a high level of discipline, being not exactly light or dark side associated, but finding your own path, more or less. Silver is also a color of dominance. So I think when Isildur or Darth Koldis bleeds his crystal, it doesn't turn red, it actually turns into a silverish color, because it reflects himself better and his emotions much, much better. Now, vengeance is sometimes also called just and stuff like that, and the color of that would be white, but it has a darker tone to it, so silver I think is perfect. Also, permafrost crystals usually only come in white, silver or blue, because that's the color of frost or ice. So blue doesn't really fit, so silver it is, fits the permafrost crystal too. His first crystal he got from killing an ice golem that had kyber crystals growing on it, one of the creations of Naga Sadow. So this was already dark side attuned. And the second one he actually got from a Jedi on Ilum, which he killed and took the crystal in typical Sith fashion. Now, with that said, he witnessed what happened in Star Wars Old Republic, and I left some room for that to happen, so that if there is more expansions coming that do a time jump, it's still covered. And he actually did do a ritual called the Ritual of Frozen Flesh, which I'll explain a little bit more later, but what it basically did is stop aging. He basically locked his body in a perma-frozen state on a cellular level, so his cells don't age anymore, they don't really change anymore. Also means that he has some problem with healing, but he can do something about that by absorbing heat. I'll go into that maybe a little bit later as well, but it basically makes him more or less immortal on a technical level, because he can't age anymore, so he won't die of old age. He can still be killed though, and I thought it was a nice switch on the essence transfer that everyone else does and just takes on a new body as did I. I think that is a more interesting way of doing this. With that said, I also am a big fan of the idea that he has a lot of ice powers, because it is really fitting his story, his upbringing, his race. Um, Basically, this connection is cool and it is rather unique. As said, I don't know that there is that, but there is many force powers that are canon that actually exist that are frost or ice themed, which is why I want to go into his powers real quick. Now the first one is Chilling Scream. Chilling Scream is also in the Old Republic video game, and Chilling Scream basically means you shout and everything in earshot freezes. That goes for living things that freeze. I also gave him a version of this called Frost Nova, which does the same to non-living things. Then you have Force Freeze, which is basically slowing down time, Cal Kestis being the most known user of that power, though not the only one. You have Force Blizzard, which is basically similar to Force Lightning, just that you shoot out icicles instead of actual lightning, but it's mechanically speaking the same. It's also in the RPG books. Hypothermia, which allows you to see the infrared spectrum, which he technically has because he's a Chiss and they all have infrared vision, but in my case I thought that he would have that as the capability to see normally. Now you have Glacial Talons, which is a power that I made up honestly, which is allowing ice spikes to come up from the ground and impale enemies that stand on that. Now if you think that's a bit broken, the official power would be Cryokinesis, which he also has, and Cryokinesis allows you to manipulate anything to do with cold. You can create ice traps, ice spikes, ice swords, ice armor, slippery ground. You can freeze things, you can freeze people, you can create prisons out of ice. You can do whatever you want with cryokinesis that is somehow related to cold. You can cool lava to make it walkable. You can freeze an ocean to walk over it. Well, maybe not the entire ocean, but parts of it, similar to the Death Knights in World of Warcraft with their little ice thing underneath their feet. You can freeze someone's blood to kill them. There's so many things that cryokinesis do. It's really just an umbrella term for many force powers that people can come up with. There's also pyrokinesis in canon, which is the same with fire, so throwing fireballs can happen in Star Wars. I chose to do the cryokinesis path. And to make it more complicated, there's also the alter environment power in canon, which allows you to change your environment's weather basically. Now since it's an ice-based character, I limit it to a whiteout, snowfall, blizzards and stuff like that. Hibernation, which slows down metabolism, also a official power. Same for Stasis, which completely freezes someone in time. I want to do some variations of official powers like Force Choke, which instead of crushing the windpipe telekinetically, it freezes the windpipe instead, so that the effect is the same, but what happens is different. Force Crush, instead of telekinetically crushing organs, it freezes and shatters them. Same effect, different way of working. Force Drain, I would modify to drain heat, and the heat he then can use to unfreeze his cells for a moment so that they can reproduce and heal. So this is the only way of him being able to heal, and then they automatically freeze again because of the ritual that is set. So that's his only way of healing, is by draining heat, which I think fits the whole thing perfectly. Also Force Wave is just the same, but it's now an icy blast that comes with snowflakes and effects like that. Force Push, same thing, just add a little bit of snowfall as a trail behind it, perfect. Force Cloak is actually mechanically the same as in the standard power. It's just that this time it's a layer of mist surrounding him, so that you're still aware of his presence because there's a mist in the middle of the desert, but you can't figure out where exactly he is, and it also muffles sounds. Instead of Force Barrier, he creates literal walls of ice. Dark Aura, functionally the same as the official power, just that this time it's with dropping temperatures, visible breath, breathing, hurting, ice forming on skin, that kind of stuff. You have Force Dread, Force Panic, which is in this case a sudden drop of someone's body temperature that really demoralizes them and makes them shivering, having the same effects mechanically but a different reason behind them. You have Winter's Grasp, which is basically the same as Senna's Shadow Tendrils, but this time the tendrils are made out of snow and sleet instead of shadows. Um, Glacial prison is just basically forming an ice prison in around someone and encasing them in that. We have Force Hail, which is basically the AoE version of uh, what's it called? Force Lightning from above, just this time with ice. Also an official power. You have Tutor Minis, which I thought would be perfect because he would absorb the energy with ice or cold and cancel out the energy. So Tutor Minis, perfect for this character. Frost Clone, basically as the Frost Phantom, the Force Phantom, it basically just leaves a ice statue of him instead of a literal phantom, so it's easier to spot. But it also offers resistance, so if you shoot at it, it bursts before it hits our main character. Morrigshow, which is also an official power that puts someone in a near-death-like state, which I thought would be perfect for meditations and stuff. And Maelstrom, variation where the shield is not made of lightning but of ice, and it actually hurts on touch instead of shocking people on touch. He also knows a little bit of Sith alchemy through the holocrons, mainly how to create dark armor and enchant it with Force Barrier, which is, by the way, an official thing. He just has an ice touch to that. He's also knowing how to create an ice golem, though I don't plan on using that, and how to make Sith warblades with an ice enchantment. For Sith sorcery, he only knows 3 rituals, which really isn't all that broken, I think. He knows how to do the ritual of Endless Winter, which basically perma freezes an area, the ice of the Cardelba, which allows him to create ice that doesn't melt, and the ritual of Frozen Flesh, which he used on himself to stop his aging process. As for his equipment, he's using a Beskar chainmail armor with a Beskar helmet that is reinforced with the Force Barrier between the links, making the armor more flexible than plate armor and just as protective as most dark armor. He is dual wielding permafrost lightsabers, you see those in the background as said. He also has a blaster pistol and flies a Sith Fury Interceptor type ship, which is super ancient by the time of 300 ABY, but yeah. As for fighting style, he's dual wielding, so it's Char-Kai obviously, and since Saber Staff is also considered Char-Kai, it's very useful that I can link my swords together to create the stuff. As for combat method, I thought about him using a weird mix of Makashi and Chuyo. Makashi, precise, no wasted movement, very deliberate attacks, very deliberate defenses, not much in terms of wasted movements. First of all, because I actually used to be quite good at fencing, foil and epi, that is, yeah, saber fencing as well, and was it rapier? I don't know the English terms. Couldn't be Florette and Degen. Anyway, I think Makashi really fits the collected, rational, calm type, and Chuyo is the moment of strike where he unleashes his fury like a berserker and just goes for the killing blow with all his anger, which fits Chuyo. And I think that is also a very unique, cool emotion that reflects the Chiss heritage very well. Also, I'm autistic, so I can relate to that. Yeah, that's the character in a nutshell. I think this video is going on way too long anyway. If you have questions, please ask them in the comments, and have a great day. May the Force be with you.